Good morning and welcome to Verdict 2014 on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. Let us begin with the headlines. Election campaigning ends in Jammu and Kashmir and Jharkhand ahead of the fifth and final phase of polling on Saturday. Among the candidates in this phase, former militant Abdul Munaf, he's come a long way from gun to the handshake to win the people over. And a focus on Chief Minister Hemant Soren's constituency, Dumka. This tribal belt remains cut off from the fruits of development. Well, as the fifth and the last phase of polls nears in Jammu and Kashmir and Jharkhand, let's take a look at the figures on the ground and what's at stake in this round. Well, first, the fifth phase in Jammu and Kashmir, that's all crucial for the BJP.
All the hurly-burly is done. The players for this phase were finalized on the 6th of December, and over the last 2 weeks they've pulled out all stops to woo the voter. Once again, it's over to the Election Commission and ultimately the voter who has the final say. The remaining 20 constituencies of Jammu and Kashmir go to polls in the fifth phase, which includes 4 seats in Rajouri district, 5 in Kathua and 11 segments in Jammu. Some 18.2 lakh voters are eligible to cast their franchise in this phase. 213 candidates are contesting for the 20 seats. 14 candidates contesting in this phase have criminal cases pending against them. Prominent among those who will contest the elections in the fifth phase are J&K Deputy Chief Minister and Congress leader Tara Chand, Jammu and Kashmir Cabinet Minister Raman Bhalla and former Congress MP Lal Singh, who has joined the BJP. The fifth phase is seen above all as critical to the BJP's Mission 44+ and its poll dreams for Jammu and Kashmir. The party banks on continuance of the so-called Modi wave and the anti-incumbency factor in the region. This phase is even more critical since a large number of Hindu-dominated areas of Jammu and Kathua go to polls, an area of BJP influence greater than Muslim-dominated regions of the valley. For the Congress Deputy Chief Minister and 3-time MLA Tara Chand faces a tough battle this time in Chamb seat in Jammu that borders Pakistan. The area has borne the onslaught of Pak gunfire and shelling as well as flood fury. The National Conference too faces a strong anti-incumbency wave, especially over handling of the flood calamity in the state. Parts of Jammu and Rajouri affected by the floods will be weighing the government's performance on this closely. Apart from this, the People's Democratic Party and BSP, who have been campaigning aggressively, threaten to play spoilsport in areas going to polls in this round. Once again, they're looking to cash in on the anti-incumbency factor. Polling takes place in over 2,300 polling stations in the 20 assembly segments on the 20th of December. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, the end of campaigning bugle has blown in Jharkhand as well. The fifth phase of polling on Saturday will decide the fate of sitting Chief Minister and other key candidates. Here is more.
Door-to-door canvassing to Mohalla road shows and rallies by local leaders and party bigwigs. The campaigning fever that has gripped Jharkhand for a month and more over the 5 phases has wound up. In the fifth phase, it's for the voter to decide now on Saturday. 16 assembly segments go to polls in the fifth phase of voting on the 20th of December. These areas are spread over 5 districts of Sahibganj, Pakur, Dumka, Godda and Devghar in the extreme eastern belt of the state. Some 36.9 lakh voters will decide the fate of 208 candidates in the fray for the 16 seats going to polls in this phase. 59 have declared criminal cases against themselves according to ADR. Among the big contests here, Chief Minister Hemant Soren faces Louis Marandi of the BJP in Dumka. Sanjay Prasad Yadav of the RJD takes on Raghunandan Mandal of the BJP in Godda. And JMM's Shashank Shekhar Bhogta, the current Assembly Speaker, faces Uday Shankar Singh of the BJP. Jharkhand has consistently returned a 60% plus voter turnout in all the phases of voting so far. Areas with a high Maoist threat, places like Giridih, Bokaro and Dhanbad saw a high voter turnout. The state is going to the 4th assembly polls in the 14 years since its formation. Once again, most of these constituencies are in areas with a high Maoist threat perception. Officials say security will be top priority. There's also a high presence of tribal voters. Reaching deep into forest territory will be a big challenge for polling parties ahead of polling day. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, we have spoken of key candidates contesting in elections in Jammu and Kashmir and Jharkhand in Verdict 2014. Well, that was from a political point of view. A bigger symbol of an acceptance of the power of democracy derives from this candidate, Abdul Munaf, who gave up the gun to stand for elections, deciding that this was a far more effective way of bringing power to the people.
To think this man used to strike terror in the population. The AK-47 rifle that Abdul Munaf once wielded has long given way to handshakes galore and smiles all around as he looks to win over the people this way. A series of circumstances had pushed Munaf into militancy in 1996. He turned away from it just 3 years later. Munaf is contesting as an independent candidate from Darhal constituency under Rajouri district that goes to polls in the 5th phase.
मेरा काम लोगों का काम करना है, चाहे मैं चोर बन के करूं, चाहे मिलिटेंट बन के करूं, चाहे जैसे भी करूं, मैं लोगों का काम करना चाहता हूं. मैं जाति कोई किसी से ना दुश्मनी रखता हूं, ना ही दोस्ती रखता हूं.
For a politician, Munaf is a surprisingly low-key figure, a reason behind his choosing to contest as an independent candidate away from the hubbub of Machiavellian politics.
मैं किसी भी पार्टी से जम्मू कश्मीर में मुझे कोई ऐसी पार्टी नज़र नहीं आई जो पार्टी मुझे जिससे मैं उसके तासरात बयान कर सकूं या उसका दिल जीत के मैं मैंडेट लेके आगे इलेक्शन लड़ूं. मेरा ज़मीर नहीं माना. झुंड के अंदर देखूं वहाँ काली बेटें मौजूद हैं. घोटाले और गफलाबाजी से मैं इससे नहीं चलना चाहता हूं कि मैं ये काम कर सकूं.
Residents of Darhal constituency say Munaf marks a watershed in the acceptance of democracy as a cure for the state's ills. They call him a symbol of hope for correction.
नहीं, ये बहुत बड़ी बात है क्योंकि ये हमारा हिंदुस्तान का आईन ही है जिसमें इतनी वसअत है कि हर किसी को ये वो मौका फराहम करता है. और वो लोग भी जो कौमी धारा से बाहर चले गए थे और तब जब उनको होश आया वो वापस आ गए, तो उसके बाद उनको इतनी इज्जत अफजाई कर रही है हमारी सरकार.
The high voter turnout in these elections has been a strong message to elements of militancy and hatred of the people embracing democracy. Abdul Munaf is another symbol of just that. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And on the last day of campaigning yesterday, several rallies had to be cancelled due to cold and foggy weather. In one incident, cricketer turned politician and BJP leader Navjot Singh Sidhu faced some public anger as he was headed to address a rally in Jammu. Agitators hurled stones at Sidhu's convoy, but he is reportedly safe and unhurt. Sidhu had also faced protest in Jammu earlier as Sikh residents of the area accuse him of having distorted a Shabad of the Gurbani during an RSS program in Ludhiana a few weeks ago. Sidhu is known to be the Sikh face of the BJP, campaigning in areas of Jammu and Kashmir with high Sikh population. He also campaigned for the party in Jammu and Kashmir in previous phases of elections as well. And finally, large parts of Dumka Assembly constituency in Jharkhand that goes to polls on 20th of December remain cut off from any form of government aid for development or any welfare programs. The residents of villages here say that they have felt none of the ostensible benefits of living in the constituency of the State Chief Minister Hemant Soren. Here is a report.
Village Murgathali, just 8 kilometers from main Dumka city, among Jharkhand's biggest metros and falling within the assembly constituency limits. Yet the hamlet has felt none of the benefits of being within the Chief Minister's constituency. Education, housing and irrigation facilities remain a far cry. Many here don't have access to even electricity and a regular water supply. There are no government-run healthcare centres and nothing for welfare of widows or the aged. Residents even say they were better off before Jharkhand had been created.
नेता लोग आते हैं यहाँ पर? नहीं, कोई नेता नहीं आता है?
नहीं
आपको पेंशन वगैरह मिलता है?
नहीं
वृद्धावस्था पेंशन?
नहीं मिलता है।
कोई सरकारी लाभ?
सरकारी लाभ कुछ नहीं मिलता है।
No avenues for employment, next to no roads, so they remain virtually cut off from the mainstream. The people of Murgathali are completely caught up with the struggles of everyday life, and their representatives haven't cared for them either, emerging only at election time.
सरकार की ओर से हम लोग क्या मांग रखेंगे? यहाँ पे नेता वोट के समय में आते हैं बरसाती मेढक की तरह, और जैसे ही इलेक्शन खत्म हो जाता है वो चले जाते हैं। यहाँ सरकार नाम का कोई चीज़ ही नहीं।
Chief Minister Hemant Soren is to be the Vidhan Sabha candidate from Dumka this time too. He'd been elected to the assembly from here in 2009. His father Shibu Soren has been elected to the Lok Sabha from Dumka. Bring the massive shortcomings in Murgathali village to Hemant Soren's attention and he just tells you there's lots that remains to be done.
वृद्धा पेंशन की बात कही, ये बात आपको भी मालूम है कि हमने वृद्धा पेंशन सभी वृद्धाओं को देने को सुनिश्चित किया हुआ, तो ये सवाल ही नहीं होता।
वहाँ एकदम विकास से कोसों दूर है वो गाँव।
मैंने कहा ना, बहुत सारी चीजें अभी बाकी है।
Opposition candidate Lois Morandi of the BJP points out that Murgathali is only one of hundreds of villages in Jharkhand completely left out of the development cycle.
जो सत्ता में बैठे हैं लोग, गांव का जीवन क्या होता है ये उन लोग को पता ही नहीं है, कभी गांव में रहे नहीं हो। जो विरासत में जिनको मिला है अनुकंपा के हिसाब से, तो उनको ये सारे चीज़ों का नई समस्या समझ में आएगा।
In villages of this assembly segment reserved for a lawmaker of the scheduled tribe category, elections come and go, but little has changed. There's only a glimmer of hope that things may get better this time. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, that's all in this edition of Verdict 2014. Thanks for watching. Have a great day ahead.